Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. Rise in risk aversion favors the dollar. Does a recovery in the U.S. stock market bring it to a halt? Analysis http ntvforex.com News ID CD2B3F9 22/20 12:50-57 p.m. Outlook in the U.S. Existing home sales are forecast up a hefty 2.4% as the exodus from cities keeps on going. House prices in the best suburbs are astronomically high. We also get the Richmond Fed Manufacturing Survey, Redbook chain stores sales, 3 Fed speeches and a 2-year note auction. Aside from worry over whether the U.S. gets a second wave, the big story today is Fed Chief Powell's testimony to the House Financial Services Committee about a second CARES Act, aka recovery money. We put testimony in quotes because we already know what Powell will say because he said it before and today's statement has already been released. It boils down to the success of the recovery depending entirely on a spending bill, not least because the Fed can't tweak its existing programs anymore and certainly not in the direction of addressing income equality among minorities. For some reason, the upcoming testimony is not identified as a top news story on any front page, nor do political pundits note that the foot-dragging Republicans are alienating the base they have been scamming with talk that they are the populist party and instead showing their true colors. Less predictable is Trees SEC Nookin's testimony. He's the one trying to get a compromise between the two houses of Congress and not to put too fine a point on it, failing. Both speakers appear again tomorrow in the Senate. Realistically, the single most influential thing today is the stock market. The S&P has now put in its longest losing streak since February. Is this the start of something big or another blip? Judging from headlines, it's a blip. Reporters would rather talk about Tesla's batteries and TikTok and goofy IPOs than about the prospect for a crash. Bloomberg writes that this is a normal September sell-off. September has brought a stock market correction. Very briefly, on an intraday basis, the S&P 500 was down 10% from its peak Monday. But it would be wrong to think of this as a continued correction. Until now, the September sell-off has been about correcting the extremes that the so-called FANG internet platform stocks had reached. They were falling while other parts of the market were recovering. On Monday, the FANGs gained again, while the average stock, represented by the S&P 500 equal weighted index, fell. Okay, maybe. But the fact remains that wherever you look, the US recovery is stalling, decelerating, fading. The Congress can't get its act together to produce another fiscal push, and the politics are toxic. People are unhappy and unhappy people don't spend money except as retail therapy. Meanwhile, the second wave in the EU, if that is what it is driving leaders there into the choice of locking down again or letting it go. So while the stock market may not drive the dollar much further, both domestic and international conditions are full of rising uncertainties and some unknown risks, like whether the BOE goes to negative rates even before the next policy meeting in early November. A rise in risk aversion favors the dollar, and that's what seems to be happening now. Does a recovery in the U.S. stock market bring it to a halt? Probably not. And over it all looms the U.S. debt. The chart is from the Congressional Budget Office. U.S. politics. On the political front, the New York District Attorney disclosed yesterday in a new filing that the Trump Organization is being investigated for tax fraud. The case will likely go to appeal and possibly all the way to the Supreme Court, but not until well after the election. Also gaining political weight is Trump planning on naming a replacement for the Supreme Court on Friday, likely a Cuban-American woman from Florida, a state Trump needs in the election, and the Republican Senate is gung-ho on getting it done so that the Supreme Court can overthrow Obama's health care, women's right to choose, and a whole bunch of other human rights and civil rights issues. It's not clear yet how this is going to affect the election. Plenty of die-hard Republicans favor civil rights as well as the integrity involved in keeping past promises. Trump said we have the power and we're using it, which is true but ugly. The latest polls show disapproval of Trump on the rise, but it will take another week before the Supreme Court effect can be properly surveyed. In the meanwhile, Dems are hoping for another 2 Republican senators to announce they will not vote on a new candidate until after the election. 4 are needed. This is probably not going to happen, and one possible future remedy is to expand the number of justices from 9 to 11 or 13 or 29 or something if and when the Dems are back in the majority. The Republicans are famous for playing dirty and the Dems are famous for being wusses, which is a turnoff for Dem voters, although that triggers despair, not a shift to the more ferocious party. This is an excerpt from the Rockefeller Morning Briefing, which is far larger, about 10 pages. The briefing has been published every day for over 25 years and represents experienced analysis and insight. The report offers deep background and is not intended to guide FX trading. Rockefeller produces other reports in spot and futures for trading purposes. To get a 2-week trial of the full reports plus trader's advice for only $3.95. Click here. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://m.me/mt5.expert.advisors.